Hi, I'm Colleen Winkleman. I'm Maya's executive assistant at Hope's Legacy, and I'm here with Maya today to talk about how equines come into our rescue. So, first off, what are the ways equines come into our care?
So the horses come to us in two different ways, either from owner surrenders or from law enforcement seizures. The owner surrenders are when owners have either a health issue that means that they can no longer care for their horse, or they've had some sort of financial issue that means that they can no longer care for their horse.
Right. So, how do you determine which horses you take in from owner surrender or when you take them in?
So we prioritize horses from owner surrenders that have a true need. That's not just that they're inconvenient for the owner. For example, Winter, who came into the rescue this year, her owner called me and his wife had dementia and he had to move her into a facility. It was costing him $6,000 a month out of pocket to care for her. And then 2 weeks prior to him calling me to see if we could take Winter, he went to the hospital with COVID, and while he was there, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. So he was having to deal with his medical issues, her medical issues, and the expense. So he needed to sell his farm and find somewhere for his horses to go. He was able to sell 2 of his horses, but he had not been able to sell Winter, so he needed somewhere safe for her to go. So that was a case of it was a true need versus somebody who just bought a horse that wasn't quite what they were looking for, and rather than finding it a new home, they were looking to just dump it on a rescue.
Yeah. So for animal control seizures, let's start with what is an animal control seizure?
So an animal control seizure happens when somebody contacts animal control about a horse or horses that appear to be neglected or abused, and animal control will go in and do an investigation. If they determine that the horses are not in good condition but are not in a life-threatening situation, they will try to work with the owner. They'll usually have to have a vet come out and examine the horses. They'll have to have a plan in place to get the horses into better condition, and then animal control will follow up 3 weeks out, a month out, and see if the improvements have been made. At that time, if the improvements have not been made sufficiently, they will frequently consider seizing the horses at that time, unless they think that it's simply a case of the owner needing a little bit more time to get things sorted out.
Sure.
There are other cases where animal control will go out and they will determine that the condition of the horses is too critical and there are either dead horses or horses that will die imminently if nothing is done, and in that case they will go ahead and seize immediately. Most animal control in Virginia does not have a facility to house horses, so that's where we come in. They reach out to us and ask if we can hold the horses for them while they go through the legal process, and then take custody of the horses if the legal process works out.
Okay, so what do they look for in order to determine whether or not to seize? You said some things about the critical condition of the horse, but is there anything else?
So they look and see if there is food and water on the property. They can still seize even if there is the food and water on the property. It's a little more difficult at that point though. The horses have to be in very bad shape to be able to be seized at that point. Virginia does not have a shelter requirement for horses, so they do not have to have run-in sheds, they do not have to have barns or anything like that, because horses in Virginia are considered livestock. So they are treated the same as cows and goats and sheep and things like that. They will also look at the overall condition, the weight, the hoof care, things like that. Hoof care is one that they will frequently give somebody time to correct.
Sure.
And if they don't correct, then they will take action.
Sure. So recently we've had some, the Chesterfield horses come in, and we couldn't post about them on social media and had to do certain things for their care. So why are some seizures confidential?
So that depends on the Commonwealth's attorney who is going to be handling that case. Sometimes when they seize, they are not going to prosecute the owners. And usually in those cases, we can go ahead and post photos immediately. In cases where they are going to prosecute, they usually like us to not post photos out of concern that it will impact the case, because they don't want to risk having a jury pool be influenced by seeing photos of what the horses looked like on social media and things like that. They also don't want the owner to be harassed necessarily. Then frequently once the legal case has been resolved, we're able to post photos.
Okay, so why would they, or why might they not pursue a legal case against someone after they seize horses?
It's up to the Commonwealth's attorney if they prosecute the case or not. I know in one case, the Shenandoah Thoroughbreds that we got 36 horses from, they decided that it was not worth prosecuting that case because the owner was, I believe, in her 80s. She had dementia. She was not going to be getting more horses. There wasn't really a risk of that. And because of her dementia, there really wasn't any benefit to prosecuting her. They didn't need to have a court order in place stating that she couldn't have more horses because it was not going to happen.
Yeah. So the final question for animal control, for seizures, how do we determine which horses we take in?
With animal control seizures, they are our priority for intakes. So if animal control calls me and says that they are seizing horses and can we help, we will do whatever we can to figure out a way to fit as many of those horses as possible. And then the ones that we don't have room for, we network with other rescues in the state to try and find space for them. Because if animal control is going to do their job, we want to support them in doing that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Maya, and we will talk more about what happens after we take in horses in the next video.